the 94-year-old grandmother is actually, as a result of DOGE's work, going to get her check. And the solvency of the federal government will ensure that she continues to receive the Social Security checks, that Medicare continues to work. If we don't do it, America's going to go insolvent. We're going to go bankrupt. And nobody's going to get anything.
Ooh, the grandmother. Social Security is failing, and desperate times call for desperate measures. Enter Elon Musk and his team of DOGE engineers. They say they are here to help keep Social Security solvent and relevant for millions of Americans. Hello and welcome to the second hour of The Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, joined by Lydia Hu, and for Dagan McDowell, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the entire hour, Fox News contributor Steve Hilton. You came back.
Exactly. I can't stay away. It's really nice of you.
So DOGE went under the hood, and what did they find? A stunning level of fraud inside the country's most controversial systems. Musk says that DOGE is cutting $4 billion in waste every single day to try to keep the program solvent. But the question is, does Washington ever intend to stop the fraud? Why don't we ask Grady Trimble, who joins us live right now from Capitol Hill. Hi, Grady.
Hey, Taylor, I think this administration does. You know, Elon Musk and the DOGE team, they have only been on the job for a couple of months, but they say they have already found widespread Social Security fraud. Here's one example Musk gave.
They call in, they say they claim to be a retiree, then they convince the Social Security person on the phone to change where the money's flowing. It actually goes to some fraudster. This is happening all day, every day. And then somebody doesn't receive their Social Security. It's because of all the fraud loopholes in the Social Security system.
So here are the numbers, and they are shocking. The DOGE team says 40% of all calls to the Social Security Administration come from fraudsters doing exactly what Musk just described, trying to alter someone else's direct deposit information so the money flows into the fraudster's account. They also say that more than 15 million people aged 120 or older are marked as alive in the Social Security system. So now they're trying to figure out how many or maybe how few of those actually are alive. In response to Democrats who claim DOGE is looking to make cuts to the program, Musk says that is simply not true. He says that the result of rooting out fraud will be that legitimate Social Security recipients will receive more money, not less money. They say one of the overall goals of DOGE is to change the way we interact with the federal government entirely. They want to make our interactions with the federal government more like going into an Apple store with a great user experience. So, Taylor, I don't know which of their goals is harder, cutting $1 trillion in government spending or creating a great user experience for the American people with the federal government. We'll see if they can do both.
When federal government's involved, it's all hard. Grady, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So, Lydia, come to me because specifically on this Social Security issue, you have some facts. And the deal is you got to cut the waste in order to save it long term.
Because we can't get away from the fact that if we stay on the current path, we're going to be bankrupt in 10 years, and that's going to be bad for literally everyone. One thing that I hear often when we're talking about DOGE, especially from the Democrats or from the left side of the party, is that Donald Trump is coming for your Social Security, that they're going to take it away, that no one's going to get their money anymore, and this is money that you've paid into the census system and that you're entitled to. It's a lot of fear mongering, that it's not factual and it's not accurate. And I'm so glad that we've heard from the DOGE team and directly from Elon Musk about really what they are doing. It kind of goes back to my concerns about the PR and the messaging around all of this. And this really hit home for me personally when just this week I had a conversation with a close family member. A family member of mine who I consider to be very informed and very educated, who was very convinced also that Social Security is going to be eliminated. And I'm so glad that I was able to point back to this interview and say, no, you can hear it straight from them. They're trying to preserve it and actually increase what you're entitled to, eliminate the fraudsters, cut out all the people that are 120 years old and still receiving payments.
Yes.
And so I think that's really what I was really taken with, and I'm really glad this interview accomplished.
Steve, we love having you here because you have a microcosm look at California. You have attempted DOGE programs in the UK,
yes,
and desperate for your thoughts on if any of them are ever successful? Because this is such an uphill battle of what these people are trying to do.
It's very difficult. Just to sort of underline Lydia's point, it is so outrageous and offensive for the Democrats to be running around scaring people like this. They think it's just politics. It's much, much worse than that when real people are anxious. It's a horrible thing to do. In terms of DOGE, I mean, look, what they're attempting is incredibly difficult. We tried something like this. I led the effort back 2010 in the UK government. We didn't have all the technological tools. And it's just very, very hard because you've got all these systems that have built up over the years. To that last discussion point with Grady, actually, I think it's building the new experience, so making government services more accessible and a better experience. That is actually easier than dealing with the legacy, because you can just create something new and migrate to that. We actually were successful in doing that with a lot of online services in the UK and built something fresh. But this legacy stuff, it's very difficult. I remember endless meetings with bureaucrats where you just realize you're never going to win if you try and get into the discussion. I remember some conversation literally took 40 minutes about regulations affecting men's pajamas. I'm not making that up. And so you can't beat them at their own game. That's why when you've got these tech leaders who really understand how to operate big systems, that's going to make the difference. And the final point I'd make is there's a lot of concern when we heard that the DOGE team were in the Treasury Department, inside the payment system, all the outrage over that. That's the only way you're going to do this. That's why it's so helpful to have someone like Elon who's built a company, PayPal, that understands how to do payment systems. Right. Because unless you control the money, you're not going to make anything valuable happen.
Jackie, there's Social Security and then there's Medicaid.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a great piece in the Journal that starts to break down what they're talking about when they're talking about DOGE aspects of this, because this is another fear-monger tactic to say all of a sudden they're going after Medicaid and you're not going to get service, you're not going to get health care if you're a low-income individual in this country. That's not what they're talking about. One of the things they're talking about is double payments. So there's a phenomenon that happens, they've realized it in the system, where people, the federal government and the states pay private insurers to offer Medicare and Medicaid to people living in that state. And what will happen occasionally is somebody will move and they will be registered in both states, but the right hand isn't talking to the left hand. And so all of a sudden you'll get a procedure and they'll be paying to insurance companies in both states. This is costing the country to the tune of, $4.3 billion over the course of the last 3 years. That was double payments. So you're talking about something that's been paid for twice. There is nobody in this country, no Democrat, that can tell me that that is a useful spend of taxpayer dollars. And just to go into it a little bit deeper, Medicare and Medicaid together cost about $1.8 trillion a year. 72 million people are on it. There are people on it that are not supposed to be. Dagan talks about this all the time. There are migrants on it. There are people that don't qualify on it. And for the Democrats who hate corporate greed to be supporting, for example, that an insurance company would be paid twice. Insurance company is the evil of all evil. It is just remarkable to me. So I'm glad DOGE is doing this, but I'm also glad that Dr. Oz is coming on board, and he says that he's going to rein in some of these excessive payment problems.
Brian, you have the anchor leg. Bring it up for us.
Well, I'm still on this question of DOGE making it better versus just making it obsolete. And I'm nervous. So take the Department of Education. Trump has said, I want to get rid of it. I don't want to make it better. I just want it gone because government shouldn't do that, right? That's the part of DOGE that gets me most excited. And so I get a little bit nervous about the part of DOGE creeping in that's saying, let's make it slick and better. Because what if the government does kind of get slick at doing things and then it accumulates more activities unto itself?
Really agree.
That's tyranny can be slick, Steve Hilton.
So I want to bring in an aspect of the conversation that I don't think we talk about enough. The Constitution. And specifically the 10th Amendment.
Yes.
The 10th Amendment is very clear. If it's not in the Constitution, a specific power or responsibility, here I'm quoting, it is reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The argument that you've just made applies not just to the education department. Why should that be run centrally from the federal bureaucracy in Washington? It applies to so many others. Look at housing and urban development.
Yes.
Right. You talk about California. The biggest funder of these totally failing homeless programs in California is HUD. Why? Why is there any argument for things like housing and urban development to be done from Washington? I think there's a whole range of these departments, not just education, that should be completely shut down and then done at the state level.
Don't make supra-constitutional activities slick. Get rid of them and go back to the Constitution. A boring Constitution is better than an Apple Store government that's grown beyond its size any day.
Yeah, but you do need something that is efficient. And again, I know you think 4 years from now a new administration could change it, but if you have IT legit companies, HR companies in the private sector who are coming in and doing it right and integrating system and having all the apps talk to themselves, to me, it's hard for a new administration to come in and screw that up because that company who's running that IT can solve that problem. But maybe I'm wrong.
They can screw it up by neglecting it like every administration up until now.
But it's an interesting question. Why do we have healthcare run at the federal level at all? Why can't it be a state-by-state activity?
Exactly.
And then and final point, if the concern is that some states are wealthier than others and that therefore it's not going to be fair, you can achieve that through state level transfers.
Right.
If you want to kind of balance it out.
I'm going to oversimplify my answer, but Brian would say this too. The reason that they want their paws in everything is because they want that control. They don't, once they start giving those powers to the states, they lose control.
Exactly, and that's just as bad. Republicans and Democrats in Congress. Once they get to, they talk about the 10th. They talk about decentralizing power. Once they get to Washington, they love the power. Exactly as you say.
Just want to get a quick look. The markets are deteriorating. I have it down 2% on the S&P, over 2.3% on the NASDAQ. The Russell 2000's down more than 2% on the day. Those are small cap domestic focused companies. So everything mostly down now. NASDAQ 2.5%, 2.7%. So at the lows of the session. One of those companies, you guys, and desperate for your thoughts on this, is PayPal. Now, I don't want to read too much into this, but here's the news. The European Union says that we can charge fees on PayPal as part of the tariff dispute with the United States. Now, PayPal was founded by Elon Musk. He hasn't been involved for the company for decades, back when they sold it to eBay, I think in the early 2000s. But maybe this is because PayPal is global. But to me, this looks like it's a hit at Elon Musk and maybe the original company he founded, even though, yes, he is not certainly involved anymore. But they're saying that, look, PayPal is one way that we can continue to go after you.
Well, we talked about the EU using American companies as piggy banks the other day, I think, with the suit against Meta. And obviously now they've got an axe to grind against Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk associated.
Brian, they said in the case of digital service providers, there's huge economic interest on the part of U.S. companies, the head of the EU Trade Committee said. In this respect, you can look at charging fees on PayPal or Google.
They didn't wait for tariffs to do this. They've been doing this to U.S. tech companies. It's why they don't make any of their own. They wait for ours. But, like they do, this is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You want to do this to PayPal? Maybe they don't do business anymore. You've got to now invent your own. Good luck to that in your moribund economies. I just don't think this is a great move for them.